and thank you for joining me on this video chat series where I chat with people who have created a life that they love. The point of this series is to show you that anything is possible, and I want to do that by talking to other people who have done it and to show you what they've overcome and hopefully impart a little bit of their advice to you on your journey, because I truly believe that anything is possible if you actually put your mind to it and clear the blocks, usually put there by yourself, that are in your way. So I hope that this series inspires you to do something that you've been wanting to do, or to change something, or to get rid of something that doesn't serve you anymore. And maybe it'll help you to create a life that you love. If you're interested in joining the next series of Manifest Me, just jump on my website, have a look, see when the next intake is, as I would love to see you there. Manifestation has been a huge part of my journey, and hopefully it can be a huge part of yours too. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Manifest Me video chat series. I'm so excited that you can all tune in for today. I'm excited to introduce our next guests. So I met Camille through a mutual friend of ours, and we'd been chatting online for a little while and trying to meet up and things like that, and it hadn't happened. And then I met her at the Conscious Life Festival, and it was great. It was really nice to actually connect in person, because as wonderful as it is to make friends online, when you actually see them in person, it's really nice. For me, I can go and give a big hug, and then I can say, hello, this is who I am. So for me, that was really nice. So Camille is going to introduce herself in a second, but she is a physio by trade, I guess you could say, but she has a business called The Body Interpreter, which I find fascinating. So we're going to get into that in a little minute. But also she's done something which I think is a bit wonderful, is she manifested her husband. So we're going to have a little bit of a chat about that during the series. But Camille has a fabulous life that she loves and has done some really cool things along the way. So I'll hand over to you, Camille, to introduce yourself and say hello.
Hello. Yes, as Hayley mentioned, my name is Camille Walrath, and I'm a holistic physiotherapist, and I'm also a self-awareness coach specializing in the mind-body connection. So helping people link their things that they're not happy with in their life or with their health or whatever with emotional imbalances that they might have. So, and like many people, I've come to this place through my own struggles and challenges over the years. And I'm sort of being the help that I wish I'd have been able to find 5 years ago.
Yes, that's often the way, isn't it? People find something and then share it once they've gone through that struggle.
Big time.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a really rewarding thing to do then, if you're going to be helping people with that.
Yeah, definitely. It's so amazing. There's nothing that lights me up more than seeing when somebody has a change in their perception, or they realize that they have more power than they knew before. Yep. and that it's been there all along. It's so freeing. And I know that feeling myself, where I've been able to read different books or maybe see other people speak, and then it helps me to change the way I view the world, and then that opens up so much more opportunity for me in life. And that's actually, after all those years of being a physio, I found that I'd almost been brainwashed into thinking we need to find problems and then cure the problem, so to speak. So that might be a problem with posture, or it might be like blood imbalance or something. So we need to add in things and take away things to fix the problem. But then I was looking for problems all the time, right? And of course, we're going to get we're going to find what we're looking for. There's no end in the human body to possible problems, but the body's always ebbing and flowing, and it's finding its own balance. So then when we start to focus on what we want, like with manifesting, right?
Yes.
So we focus on what we want and what's good, then we're actually going to build that up in our lives. So that applies to health as well, which is sort of what I specialize in when working with clients.
Nice. Yeah, well, you mentioned that lights you up. So I guess if you're doing that, as your day in, day out sort of thing, that must really be nice. Yeah. So how did you decide to start the Body Interpreter and start doing this?
Yeah, so I started off working in hospitals for physio, and then I moved into private practice, and I noticed, not only in hospitals, but more so in private practice, that all of these weird things were happening that none of my training could explain. Like for example, I had this lady come in with a disc bulge in her back, and I was doing all the protocols and whatever, and she was just sort of slowly getting better, and then she'd have her setbacks. And then one week she suddenly came in and she had no pain anymore. And I went through with her all of these, and like, she basically had changed some emotional things in her life and dealt with some relationship issues she was having. And then she just didn't feel under pressure anymore. She didn't feel unsupported anymore. And all of these things that, like, you know, they wouldn't have taught me in uni that was connected, it actually was, and it helped her heal that. Probably a better example would be a woman who had shooting nerve pain down both of her arms for 6 months. And the doctors, just as a last minute thing, they're like, look, we can't help you, just go see a physio, maybe that'll keep you quiet, kind of thing. And she, one day she just totally opened up to me, and
everything came out.
Exactly right. She emotionally offloaded, and then the next day she called up and said, my pain's not coming back, I know it's not. And I knew it wasn't because of the treatment that I'd done, like, you know, the prodding and the poking. It was more than that. And I talked to my colleagues about it, and they say, oh, nah, she was just making it up. And, you know, it's not linked. But I just kept on getting more and more curious about it, and finding more and more cases of this, things that are medically unexplainable, but are truly happening in people's lives. And rather than sort of push it aside and think, oh, no, that's just a mystery, they must have been making it up, I think, well, what is this? What's going on here? Is it magic? Is it like, and then I started discovering people like Joe Dispenza, who links scientific discoveries in neuroscience with changes in our biological function. And Candace Pert who was one of the pioneering people to scientifically link the mind to the body and prove that our emotions change the hormones in our body and our inflammatory markers and so on. So it's really fascinating, and this knowledge has been around for a while, but it's taking a really long time to get through to the general population, I would say. And it's so important for us all to know, because there are a lot of people putting up with illness and pain that they really don't have to have in their lives.
Look, this is something that I find fascinating personally, because I really believe that there's a link between our emotions and what shows up in our body. And I've had that personally. I've had that experience personally. But for people who, I guess, are new on this journey, I like to say to them, I'm nowhere near a medical professional, but if you look at people who are stressed, you can physically see it in their body. They start to hunch over and they close themselves off, and they're physically closing themselves off from the world because it's either too much pushing down on them or they're trying to protect themselves. So if that's happening in a very simple example, there's got to be other things happening in our body that, is going to affect us in a physical way. That's my thought. So it is nice to hear that is sort of filtering through the mainstream, I guess, that people have those options now. If they can't get a solution from other practitioners, that they can come and see people like you, and they're not considered to be strange or abnormal. It's just like, there's nobody who's been able to help me. This is what's going on. I think it's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, one of the things I like teaching in some of my workshops is that our physical health is just one layer of who we are and how we're showing up in the world. And sometimes, because we've ignored, say, mental stress for a very long time, or our lifestyle factors that are actually messing us up in some ways, or a lack of self-love, which means we're making poorer choices in our diet or in our social circles, then eventually that's going to show up as pain or an autoimmune illness or something along those lines. And then it forces us to bring attention to this imbalance, which has been there for long before the health thing showed up. But it's just that's the way our body or our energy field was able to get the message through to us. So it's not like pain and illness is bad. It's actually a signal that's coming from our subconscious mind and our higher self that's trying to say, hey, there's something that you need to look at that's going on here.
I believe that. I think that our body is always sending us signals, and it's just about us learning to work out what they're from and what they're caused from. And if we can't work it out on the physical level, we have to go deeper and go, okay, well, this is still showing up for me. So there's still something that's out of balance.
Yeah. And we all have this compass within us, but we've just been taught for so long to ignore it. Even think about little 5-year-old kids in school. It's like, sit down, sit in a straight line. You need to be listening. Don't be getting up and running around. And that's that's not even where it begins. It begins before that.
Yeah.
But like, it's just constant. And even as adults, we might be tired and couldn't be bothered going to work on a Monday morning. And we just want to go out and sit on the beach, but we have to ignore that. So we have our coffee and we force ourselves through. And this is just something that we do routinely.
Yeah.
So that the more we can actually get in tune with that our inner selves and what we really need, then yeah, exactly. You got it.
Everything can change from there. Yeah. So when you started up this, did you have some challenges along the way? Did you sort of think, oh my gosh, should I be doing this? Should I be sticking with physio? Did you have to overcome some things when you decided that this is what you wanted to do? Or was it, nope, this is what I have to do?
There's this book I read, thank goodness I read it, called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And he talks about how people just sort of work in their level of function. They're like, oh yeah, I can do this, so I'm going to do it. And it's kind of easy. But then beyond that is our calling. And when we actually start to align ourselves with our calling, there's going to be this jump where we don't know what's going to happen. And this all happened around the time, April 2020, when things were changing in the world. And I stopped working in a physio clinic. And I thought, well, I could try and get some more physio work, which is an easy, logical thing. It's reliable. Or I could follow this inner calling that I have. Yeah. And to be honest, there have been so many moments that it's been really, really hard, because going from being an employee to someone who's running a business and promoting myself and just learning everything as I go, it's been really, really tough. And I guess I've learned some hard lessons along the way, just in how much effort I can to put into something, and then it seemed to be for no reason. And but it honestly, like looking back, I think, wow, I'm so glad I did that.
Yes.
And but it's crazy how many times I've just had to jump and not know what's going to happen next. But now I'm kind of getting used to that, and I'm enjoying it, because I think, well, look, I'm only going to grow from it anyway. So I'll learn a bit more about what my priorities are and what's really important to me, because I'm always going to have the energy for what my calling is. Yes. So I don't need to worry about my issues of the past of being burnt out, because that was because I wasn't in alignment with the work I was doing.
Yes. I think that's such a great message. And I think it's really hard for some people to take that leap, because we are, we're sitting in that zone of comfort and we know what is coming up and we can process and comprehend it. But when something is out of that zone, we're sort of like, do we do this? Is this good? Is this bad? But I mean, I can honestly say I 100% agree with you. When you're in alignment with it, you still have to jump, but everything gets easier, and you don't feel, like you said, you don't feel so burnt out. You don't feel annoyed, and you don't feel stressed, and you don't feel all of those things as much, because you remember why you're doing it, and that why lights you up, and when you do that, you can go, okay, I can reframe this as a learning. We've started doing this thing in our house about, what did you fail at today, or what did you learn today? Because when we do that, it shows a little step. Do you know what I mean? And then we can actually look back and see, oh yeah, I have taken all of these steps. I thought that I was just taking a leap into nothingness, but actually I've learned all of these things, and I'm so much further along than where I thought I was. So I think that big leap is very important, but it is quite difficult. Yeah, I talk to people about, when that happens, just remember why. If you can remember why you want to do something, or what you're in alignment with, that's the most important thing. It's letting go of the how and welcoming in the why.
Absolutely. And also, like, I've learned to celebrate the tough times, because it's almost a milestone in my growth. Because I remember the first time I had someone send me an angry DM because I'd shared 2 events that were coming up at a time, and she was getting spammed on her newsfeed. And I was so upset about it. And now, like, I get it that, it's like, it's awesome that I'm visible enough that people are going to get angry at me. That's that's actually something I need to do, to become visible enough to help the people who really need to hear what I've got to say.
Yeah, I totally agree. When people have the energy to start to argue with you and interact with you, I like to frame it as a positive, in that they were so invested in what I was saying, or they're so invested in what I'm sharing, that they got annoyed, as opposed to they didn't just scroll past you. You weren't just a passing thought, So I think that can be a really nice positive if you reframe it in your mind.
Yeah, for sure.
So one of the things that I do want to touch on is, and we've talked about it a little briefly, is you manifested your husband. And I think it's such a great story. Is there a little bit at least that you want to share about that, about what happened and how you went about that?
Yeah, I'm wondering how I can keep this story under an hour because I love all of the details, but it's so cool. I love how my growth was reflected in my life circumstances. So it actually all began when I was in this really unfulfilling, painful relationship, and I knew that we had to split up, but it just felt nice to be together, and it felt like that I had something in my life that it's so hard to explain, but it felt better to have someone there than to be alone, because I had thought that it was bad to be alone. So we kept coming, and then we split up, and then we come back together again, and then eventually it got so bad because I was putting up with the way he was treating me just because I wanted to be with someone.
Yeah.
Basically, he stood me up for Christmas. We had plans together for Christmas. And then he texted me like a couple of days before and was like, "Oh, I'm going camping. Bye. See you later. Like, see you at New Year's." And I just thought, nah, I'm not putting up with this anymore. And like in those few days between Christmas and New Year's, I just like journaled, and I'm like, this is what I'm willing to put up with. I'm willing to put up with waking up next to somebody who I feel so lucky to be with, and have them open their eyes and have them feel the same, and to tell me I'm beautiful, and to look forward to me coming home, and have them like have dinner on the table for me. And that's what I'm willing to put up with. And I got really clear on my deal breakers. And actually, I recorded all of this in a book for my brother and sister, because they were asking me questions about it, because I really did. I went through all of these processes that changed the way I saw the world, what I was going to stand for, what my deal breakers were, and the way I saw myself, because I was actually carrying all of these beliefs. For example, a man's time is more important than my time. Or like I'm actually, every time I'm speaking, it's wasting his time. It's a hassle for him to have to listen to me. So I just need to stay quiet and stay out of the way. And that's what a good girlfriend does. And I began to see the flaws in all of these beliefs that I had, and started rewiring those. Yeah. And started realizing the places I felt lack in my life, like why I need a boyfriend because I need someone to go to the movies with me. I need someone to go out for dinner with me. But I began to replace those things with good friends, or to just do it on my own and just really enjoy going to a movie on my own. And so I've gradually learned to feel less lack in that area of love in my life. Yeah. And I remember like every single night I would lie in bed and just stroke my arm like I wanted someone else to. And I'm like, I can do this. I can, stroke myself lovingly and see the beauty in myself and appreciate myself. And then lucky me, when I went on this camping trip, and I like finding a man was the last thing on my mind. I was like, I'm going to have fun with my friends. I feel so happy and fulfilled in my life right now. I don't need anything. I'm just here to enjoy myself. I'm here to get some nature time in. And on day one of my friends had brought a mate from the States on this camping trip. And the funny thing is, I never was like, oh my God, he's the one, because I just wasn't in that frame of mind. I just thought, oh, he seems interesting. He seems healthy, whatever. And we had some great chats, but I assumed he was going to be moving away or continuing on with his traveling, because he was just in town for a few days. But then we stayed in touch, and I started noticing all of these little qualities in him that I'd been sort of imagining what it feels like to be hugged. And it was almost like our bodies were twisting together, and I didn't know where our arms were anymore. And that's what it felt like to hug him. And I thought, whoa, this is so cool. It's exactly what I'd been feeling for myself and imagining for myself. And literally every day, like we started hanging out, and he started staying at my house, and every morning he'd wake up and he'd be like, oh, I feel so lucky. I feel so happy to be here right now. And it was exactly what I was willing to put up with. Yeah. And I sort of began to realize, my gosh, this really works. Like I did all of those things, and I kind of accidentally did a lot of them. I didn't know that you're supposed to kind of forget about the search and just go out in the world, but it all just unfolded perfectly for me. Yeah. I love the part that I love most about, I mean, obviously the beautiful love story, but that
I see a lot of people trying to manifest love, and they've got a list of what they want, and that's the list that they're working on. I want this in a partner and that in a partner, and they're looking at other people. But it's not about changing one aspect of your life. It's about changing who you are and making it a lifestyle thing. And then that's when it happens, So I love it that you were like, okay, cool. What do I need to work on for me? Like, because when I do all of these things, I make my life better, whether or not I have a partner, So I say to people, these manifestations are a bonus in your life because you are perfect as you are. This is just a bonus, an add-on to your life. And when you realize that it's a bonus and an add-on to your life, when you've done that work, it makes it easier to surrender, which is what you did. You forgot about it, So I love that, because some people are just ticking off a list. No, this is what I want to manifest in my perfect man, da, 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 da. And they're not doing the rest of the work. So their life remains the same. They're looking for someone to sort of plug into it, but you have to do all the other work to make that a lifestyle change. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things, because I had my list, right? I had 38 things on my list.
38. Wow. He's a impressive guy.
I still have this list too. It's really funny. But then I realized, I'm like, well, if I expect him to fill all of these things, am I actually that kind of person? Am I someone who's really fit and healthy? Am I someone who values like what kind of food I'm putting in my mouth, and that I love my family, and am I really inspired in my work and doing great things in the world? And I realized that I was actually being a little bit unrealistic in some ways, because I expected this vision of perfection to show up in my life when I was actually so self-critical and in a rut, and like sort of being at home and being a hermit, and not even doing things that I enjoy in my life, just expecting some guy to come and save me from this and make my life better.
Yeah.
But that was never going to happen while I was in that energy space.
Yeah.
So rather than waiting for someone to come along who ticked all those boxes, I'm like, wow, okay, I've got this whole list of things that I can try for myself and find out, is that really important for me?
Yeah. It's almost like, when you're sitting in there in that space, if he comes along, he's putting a Band-Aid on the problem. But if you're doing the inner work, you're fixing the problem yourself, and you've got a bonus coming in. I love it. Love it.
Yeah, because we act differently if we think we have something to lose as well. Yeah. So if they're fulfilling something that we need, then our energy changes, and they can feel that. And it's kind of this repulsive kind of energy, unless they have an unhealthy attachment to needing to be something to someone, to be needed. But that's not the kind of relationship that I want it to be in.
Exactly. I was just going to say something and it's totally gone out of my brain.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. But thank you for that. I love it. I think that's a wonderful story. I really like that. And I love that you shared it with your family and friends as well, and said, right, guys, this is what I did. Did it work for them?
Yeah. So it's wild. Originally I wrote this Google document, and I shared it with my brother and my sister. Yeah. And my brother did it. I said, it says in the document, write this in your own handwriting, because it's often more effective. So he had a book out and he wrote all of his answers, and he sent me photos of all of his answers, and he got so clear on what he wanted. He got so clear on what he needed to let go of from the past, and his beliefs about love and all of this stuff. And he worked, and you know what? He met his soulmate. They are so perfect together. They're getting married next year. And then this happened with a few people. They'd sort of, it had just come up in conversation. I'd say, oh, well, I wrote this thing if you want me to send it to you. Yeah. And it just kept going from there. And then eventually I'm just sort of going with what the world's requesting. And I did a workshop on manifesting your soulmate last year, and it was so much fun.
Yeah, it is. But I think it's so much fun when you're doing something that you're in alignment with and on purpose for, it makes it such a different energy than going to work and doing something that you're like, okay, I'm here for the money. Then what do I need to do? All right, get it done, So yay, congratulations to you. Would you have, obviously we can't go through the whole thing, but one piece of advice for someone who's trying to manifest love?
I would say, bring your focus back to loving yourself and finding reasons to feel good in your life. Nice. Because it all starts with loving ourselves.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's awesome. Yay. What is some of my final questions? What is something that you think that everybody should do at least once in their life?
Yeah, that's a really good question. because it's so personal.
Yes.
I think that it's really important that we explore, and like I feel like life is a continuous exploration, and we need to be open to being challenged and new things. I don't think this is a very specific answer to your question, but it's like we need to understand that our beliefs and perception is just one angle of what's going on. So the more that we can go outside of our beliefs and look for evidence of the opposite of our beliefs, then we can find a really balanced perspective.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think for me, it's usually travel. I say that travel will open your eyes, and that, you know, you'll explore, you'll experience all these different things. So, you know, travel and experiences are mine. So I totally agree. And sitting with sometimes that discomfort, you know, is where we learn. You know, when you're sitting in a space of this isn't very comfortable, you can go two ways. You can take the positive out of it, or you can spiral downwards. So I agree.
Yeah, I get, you know, what I probably should have said then is do something that makes you feel uncomfortable that you've always wanted to do.
No, that's a nice way of putting it. Yeah. Nice. So if you could go back and tell your 18-year-old self one thing, what would you say?
I say the more that I can be myself, then the more power I have, and then the right people will be attracted to me. I don't need to act or behave any certain way in order to fit in, which was probably my biggest issue back in that stage of my life, was trying to be liked by people and getting further and further away from who I really was, to the point that I forgot.
Yeah. But it's nice that you've come back now, hopefully. Like that you've come back, because I think that's a very common thing when people are growing up. They don't know where they fit. So, you know, survival of the, you know, group survival, when we were, you know, caveman days, we stayed in a group and we all did the same thing, you know. But then when you sort of grow up, you sort of realize you have to work out who you are. And that can be a scary thing to do, you know. So unless you've got that support system around you who says, hey, it's okay for you to be different, it's okay for you to do this if that's what makes you happy. No, I agree. Nice. And our final question for today is 3 words to describe you.
I'm introspective and forever growing.
Oh, nice. I like that. Yeah. I think
it's a tricky question.
It is a tricky question. We used to ask that when I was in my corporate world. We used to ask that to people who were coming in for a job interview, and it was so interesting to see what people would say on the spot. You know, they're like, oh, and I loved it when people would say real things, because often in a job interview you're like, oh, well, I'm hardworking and I'm dedicated and blah blah, but some people would be like, I'm fun, or I'm artistic, or whatever it was. And I was like, yeah, this is the person that I want to see, you know. There's just so much of that. This is me fitting in a box to do a certain thing, but I want to see your personality. I want to see who you are and how you see yourself.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, that's where all the good stuff is.
It is. It really is. It is. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. I will drop all of your deets in the comments so that people can find you. Otherwise, thank you so much, and go and have a fabulous day. Everybody else who's watching, thank you for watching or listening, however you're getting this. And I'll be back soon for another Manifest Me video chat series. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.